Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much indeed for attending the Attendance Advisory Committee meeting. Those of us are here in person, and there's two members who are joining us via Zoom. But of course, you both are aware that you won't be able to vote, but you can participate in the debate. Before I start, can I just say something else? Unfortunately, this morning I woke up finding that my right ear has been blocked, so I've been finding it rather difficult to hear. So you're probably going to have to elevate your voice slightly, if you don't mind. My left is in perfect order, thank God. So bear with me. All right, so we've got a succinct agenda, the first of which is to record apologies and absences and substitutes. Is there any?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, we've received an apology from Gary Moses.
Thank you. Turning then to the second item on the agenda, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? Made? Yes, no? No. Very well, all right. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting and the action log. So let's turn to that, and they can be found from pages 9 onwards. Just going through page by page. So the first page, just looking at the action log. I think those we can find at page 13, and I can see that a good number of them have been closed. Any comments on the first page of the minutes? Do we confirm that they're accurate? Okay, moving to the second page, page 10, action log. Again, we see that at page 13, and we can just see in the column, in the action log, those that are still open and those that are closed. And as you will see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in the 7th column on the right side of it, across it, you will see it says open, closed. So a good number of them, as I said, are closed or were closed. And I think the first of them, SAC 001, that remains open, but we'll come to that in due course. I think we're going to bring that up in due course, yeah. So,
Chair, if you don't mind,
yeah.
I'm happy to provide an update at this stage, or whether you want to pick it up later on, it's whatever, because I don't think it comes up again on the agenda. It only comes up under the minutes in this action log, because it's not in the the paper.
I think it might be, if you would agree with me, everyone, it might be worth just to have a look at that. Before I do, I'm forgetting my manners. I should, of course, introduce you to our new monitoring officer to this committee, and I think I speak on behalf of all of you in welcoming her to her post, her new post, and to this committee. We are. I'm sure we are very grateful for the speed with which she's picked up her remit and her brief, and we're very grateful for you having here, Asma. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. So should we pick that up then? What about the code of conduct?
So
are we all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Catherine, Ashok. Thank you. Yes.
So, according from our action log, you can see that the work was going to be done on the draft code of conduct for Newham, and was going to be brought to the next standard advisory committee. Due to, as Chair has put, due to a turnover of staff, Daniel leaving and me coming here as an interim, we have not been able to, at the current time, undertake that work. There's still quite a bit of work to be done on the code and some nuancing and fine tuning. So with Chair, with your agreement and the committee, we are seeking to defer this to maybe after, after the elections, with the new intake of members as well, because there may be some changes we need to consider. So we would like to do a bit of a review of that code and bring it back here, if you don't object, Chair and members. I don't know if Lookman wants to add anything more, because I know he's been working a lot more on the code than myself.
Yeah, Chair members, I just wanted to add that we have started the review process. It has been challenging because of competing demands and staff changes. One of the other main reasons why we want to defer the review is that, on reflection, the predominant view was that so close to a full council election, it just didn't seem appropriate for this council and its current members to impose a code of conduct on a newly constituted council only in a few months' time. And in our experience, it's always better to engage with members about something like a code of conduct from the very outset, so that they are invested in it, so that they understand it, and ultimately so that will secure practical compliance. So for that reason as well, we felt that it was most appropriate to rewind the process a little to some extent, and to start afresh following the elections in May. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's helpful. Any comments or any? Yes.
I'd like to say, while I can quite see Lookman's point on that, there is still the case that those of us who are councillors, and particularly Alan, who's been a councillor for a long time, but you know, all of us are experienced councillors, and actually I think probably we might have some input that could at least get it going at this point from our experience, but I'll bow to whatever decision is made, because of course part of our problem is time now.
Yeah, and on that issue, Chair, if I may, I would just mention that, of course, the code of conduct has been brought before the committee on a number of occasions, and very helpfully we already have the benefit to a large extent of the committee's input, and all of that is being stored and will be used and taken full advantage of. So when the process is restarted in earnest, then it will be from a much higher base than what we found ourselves 2 years ago when we first started reporting on this to this committee. So in that regard, I would wish to reassure members that the input that they have provided so far, the valuable input, will indeed inform and will inform the process going forward and will assist greatly.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, likewise, I understand the rationale behind that. However, elections will be in May, won't they?
Yeah.
And 1st of July is still quite a time actually. And if we've got newly elected members who are going to need training and induction in terms of that, I suppose I wouldn't want to see it drift, I think, is what I'm going to guess at here. And these things do, don't they? Because life happens, you know. But I do think the code of conduct is so important. I think we need to have sort of some mitigation in place for newly elected councillors at May, whatever date it is, that they have got access to that and understand that there is a new one coming along. I can't remember if there's too much deviation for the, I know it's a model one that we're working towards, how much deviation we are for. So I suppose in summary, what I'm stressing is I think we mustn't underestimate the importance of the standards, to be honest, and I want them to see it through.
May I, Chair?
Yes, of course.
I totally agree. 100%. As monitoring officer, it's so important for a local authority to have a relevant, up-to-date code of conduct. And you will hear later on, as we get through the agenda, you will hear from Bethany and myself about the training, and one of the training that we want to do with those members returning and new members and or mayor is training around the code of conduct. And we do need to consider the nuance around the model, what Newham wanted and the existing. So what we could do maybe offline, and I have to say we will have to think of work priorities, whether we could just do a briefing or something that says, this is the current, this is what standards say, and we will also have to go through that process with the training as well. And that's something I will have to, because myself and Lookman will be providing that training, and hopefully with the chair will also be joining us with the new returning members. So it is something I can try and look at and maybe share offline. But I don't think we'll have enough time to have another committee to go through that, but we do it offline.
I just want to be very, very clear on this. I mean, I don't think it is being suggested that the current code of conduct is put back or is suspended again.
No, that's still in place. That is correct, Chair. That continues regardless.
Yes.
It's us adopting a revised code of
Yes.
conduct, because the current code of conduct in the Constitution doesn't, and I'm sorry if I'm rehearsing this and you've heard it before, but doesn't pick up what the Local Government Association model code picked up, that the new code, the new model picks up aspects, for example, has more specific stuff around bullying, harassment, and is more explicit and talks a lot more about the types of interest you have, whether it's disclosable, non-disclosable, there's all these nuances. As Lookman has highlighted, you've already had that discussion here, from my understanding. So we just haven't been able to go further. And I said I wanted to see what we did adopt here in Newham and what we didn't, and why did we not adopt it? What was the nuances here? I don't know if you want to add anything more on that, Lookman, as to where we are.
Before you do,
or is there work to be done more on that?
Before you do, I'm just trying to coalesce the views expressed so far. So my understanding is that we shouldn't let it drift, but of course the current code will remain in abeyance, if I can put it that way. And the experience that has been brought to bear on that current one will remain. But I suppose what has been suggested is that with the new model LGA one, it's going to be adopted. And when you therefore say, Asmat, in your paper, when we get to it at item 5, that the reason why this is going to be put back, as it were, is so as to engage in the development process. And the development process, is it right, will be that because of the election, you're not able to as it were, put your finger to it right now, and in due course.
Yeah, so there's partly I'm an interim, so I've started some work. I mean, Lookman has got some history, but Lookman and I have been looking at it. But we do need to understand what we currently have and what does the model, and have that discussion. And it's only right that it's this committee, because it would be this committee that refers it on for council to adopt. So it's important that this committee buys into any changes to that. I don't know how much work has the committees undertaken, Lookman, on the model, whether they've actually reviewed it and what stage we are at for Newham.
So, Chair, if I may, so as the LGA Model Code of Conduct has been presented to the committee from memory, I think on perhaps 2 occasions. I think the committee has thus far been able to comment on certain aspects, but not comprehensively, and also there are a number of strategic issues which the committee have not been specifically briefed on, and therefore have been able to form a view on. So I think all of that work will happen in due course. Chair, I just wanted to add that you've made a point that I was going to, which is that there's no standards vacuum in the meantime, that we do, our code of conduct remains in place. Our current code of conduct remains in place unless and until it is replaced by a new one. And Julie makes a very good point, which is that the current code is basic. And I think that's the most charitable word that I can use. It perhaps is no longer fit for purpose. So we do need to proceed to adopting the LGA Model Code of Conduct, however, with a few variations sooner rather than later. And I think Azzy made a really good point that what we can do, which speaks to Julie's point, is that when we're advising members of the requirements of the current Code of Conduct following the election, so this is mainly directed at brand new members, then we can give them advance notice of the kind of matters and obligations that they are likely to see under the new Code of Conduct as well. And also, Chair, just one final point. It's not just the Code of Conduct. What we'll also have to look at is the complaints process, but also more broadly, the committee's terms of reference and setup as well. So we're looking at all aspects of the council's standards governance arrangements, because they all interrelate with each other. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's helpful, and thank you, Aslan. Which then brings me to the next question. I think it was mooted earlier on, about the timing of this, particularly given that there is a fairly comprehensive program of training, which I know you will address us in due course. So where all of that fits in, can we get us some information on that? I mean, when are we hoping? In addition to, yes, judging by your face.
Sorry, look, when you can't see
another question. But judging by the very heavy training program, I'm just trying to see how we can all fit all of that in. Do you see where we are with this?
I mean, I have to say, having been through it, 8 years ago, it is a bit information overload.
Yes.
So I think it wouldn't hurt to revisit some things in due course. You know, you have to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them.
Yeah.
As they say.
So
I'm looking at you, but
okay. So
I mean, Lukman can.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. So the training is a separate item, and we'll have a bigger discussion on the training side. I'm a bit hesitant because I know how busy Lukman and I are on many other things. As you can imagine, when you come in new, you've got quite a huge agenda. We can do our best endeavours, at least, to provide an update on where we're at with the code, and if we can look at what if Lookman and I can have a discussion about the gap analysis. So, for example, I mentioned the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the new rules, bullying and harassment, and how I can say, well, the gap analysis for NUM is these areas. And I can try and, I'm saying my best endeavours, because I don't want to say,
Yeah,
I'll have it to you
understood.
next week and I'm going to fail. I don't want to do that. So, hopefully, by the end of the month.
But if far better to be realistic than
So,
not.
but we can
Yeah.
just do a one or two side sheet of paper that we can say this is where we're at, and I can circulate that.
Yes,
It shouldn't take. Yeah, I'm able to do that.
because we've been through the analysis in this committee previously about the local model anyway, so we don't get further input from us. It's just a matter of having an oven ready. Excuse the phrase. All right. Does that help us? Any other questions? Anything from Ashok or Christina? Sorry. Thank you, Asma. That's helpful. All right. So we've dealt with that. Then going back to the previous minutes, if I could take you back to page 10. And page 11, I think, is a continuation, isn't it? 6, yes, it is. And then page 12. Do we confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the last meeting?
Agreed.
Agreed. Ashok, Christina, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Moving on then to, now there is the action log, isn't there? Let's just very quickly.
So Chair, I was just going to mention that the action log and say this that of course action number 1 stays open, and we've just discussed that.
Yes.
Us for the other open items. So if we then move down to action number 8,
Page 14.
Yeah, on page 14. So that's the SAT work programme, that members be canvassed on the effectiveness of the protocols set out in the Constitution prior to protocols being reviewed. I wasn't at the last meeting, Chair, but my understanding is that what councillors usefully suggested was that instead of undertaking the detailed, time-consuming process of reviewing outstanding protocols in detail, first of all, the opinion of the members of the committee should be canvassed on whether the protocol is needed in the first place. So we can do that. So what we can do that at the committee's next meeting in respect of those protocols which are yet to be reviewed. So that can stay open. Chair, are you happy for me to move on to action number 9?
Just before you do, effectiveness on the protocol set out in the Constitution, just remind me what, I mean, did we look at any specific protocols?
Yeah, so Chair, this is something that the committee has been doing for a number of years. So in turn, we have been presenting reports to the committee on the various member protocols which are set out in the Constitution. So most recently, I think at your last meeting, you looked at the social media protocol.
Yes.
And then you've looked at a protocol on the use of council resources by members. You've looked at foreign visits and so forth. So I think in the context of that discussion, what members suggested, what was that in respect of those which we are yet to review, before undertaking that work in detail, the opinion of the committee should be sought on whether that protocol is needed in the first place, and whether it is necessary an effective use of time to review in detail. So I think that's what that action point is.
And I think that's also tied to SAC 11, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So I just wanted, yes. So I was going to come on to that, and I just to say that the action points 9 and 11 can now be marked as closed because they've been completed.
9 and 11.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So they will be then deemed so closed. Any views on that? Pretty straightforward, isn't it? All right. Good. And then that leaves 9. Where are we with that? Are we?
So that leaves 10. So that leaves action point 10. Having dealt with 9 and 11. Yeah. We are working on the recruitment for, and we're certainly aware of the need to recruit a further independent member following a recent vacancy, and that's on hold because that's part and parcel of the broader standards review that we are going to be undertaking as part of the review of the member code of conduct. We will be looking at the constitution of the standards committee and its membership, as I say, in the context of the review of the members code of conduct, and making a decision on that at the same time.
I see. But in terms of the recruitment process, is that underway, or will that be underway in due course once you've reviewed it?
Yeah. So that's held in abeyance. And
I see.
So that until a decision is made on the membership and constitution of the standards committee.
Understood.
Following the local elections.
Any views on that from anyone? Any particular views? Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So that takes care of item 3. We go on to item 4, which is our work program, page 15, and subject to what we already discussed about the code of conduct. We've dealt with that. And the work program itself appears at page 17 to 18. We are asked to consider and agree this updated work program. Any comments, any questions from anyone about the revised work program for the remainder of this year?
May I, Chair?
Yes.
So for the 12th of April 2022, that meeting, a report needs to come to standards to then be considered with regards to disclosable, with regards to dispensations. So if you look at your agenda, actually I don't know what item that page is on, you'll see at the beginning of each agenda we have a standard advisory committee.
Declarations.
Yeah, under the declarations, you will see at the front of your agendas it talks about declarations, and if you look at number 4, it talks about dispensations.
Yes.
And if I can refer you, the first paragraph talks about dispensations being granted in limited circumstances. And then the second paragraph goes on to say that the monitoring officer under section 33 has granted the following general dispensations to all members until the annual council meeting in 2022.
Yes.
It's good practice and good governance for that report to be brought here, so standards can agree with the monitoring officer with what general dispensations we want to provide to our members. You'll see the list there. So what I'd like to include into the 12th of April programme is that list for the elections after May, because what I'm not sure of the timetable is, what I don't want is new members come in and if something happens urgently and they've got a DPI, they can't participate. So I just want to put that in place in advance. I'd like to add that to the work programme for the 12th of April, and that is a report of the MO on dispensations for members.
On all of those bullets.
So we'll need to consider as a committee what ones you know, because we don't know what our new members or existing members, what they're continuing in. So new members may have a different, but I think the debate should start happening here at the committee.
Yes, I think that's a good governance. Do you agree with that?
Yes, that is.
Absolutely, Christina? Yeah. And that presumably will feature as a standard standalone item.
Yes, it will be a report standalone, yeah.
So be it. All right. So, do we agree with the updated work program? If so, please say yes. Agree. Ashok, Christina, I know you're not voting, but do you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Item 5, member induction and training program, which we touched on earlier, page 19. And yes, Asma, do you?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Firstly, can I please introduce Bethany, one of our national graduates, who's got to take the, you know, I've got to give credit to her because she has actually drafted a report and did all the work around the report. So what I'd like
this reporting, which is attached to you.
Yeah, it's Bethany has worked quite intensely on doing this and is still doing some more work around this. So what I'll do is I'll give a high level introduction, and if you don't mind, I'll then pass on to Bethany, and between the two of us we'll hopefully answer any questions. So what you have before you is the programme that we would like to do for new and existing returning members and mayor, because we, you know, so the training programme is here for consultation. There might be something in that programme that you think we need to address and we haven't considered as officers. The engagement and consultation is ongoing, so we're still wanting to engage other members on this, but I think it's only right and proper that Standards agrees this programme because it's all part and parcel of what we're talking about, like the Code of Conduct. So what you have before you is the proposals set out, they're quite in detailed. There will be some training that we say is essential, it's mandatory. And there will be some that's going to require, that you'll have to do, that is required to do the job. For example, if you're on a quasi-judicial committee such as planning or licensing, and then there's some that we just think is general learning and development. The essential training, regardless of your returning councillor, you will still be required to attend. And I think it's good practice and good governance that you do cyclical training for members, regardless of whether you're 2 terms, 4 terms, because it's good to have refresher courses. So we've set that out. On that note, I'm going to pass over and introduce Bethany. If you want to just introduce yourself a bit more, Bethany.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as Matt said, I've been working on this with also Adrian May, obviously before he left, who's leading this. And I think, yeah, obviously there's a lot of detail in this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions more specifically on the detail. And obviously you've got the list of each training session that's planned, and from the kind of onboarding process to offboarding and things like that. So yeah, I'm happy to go over anything else that you've done.
Thank you very much, and welcome, and thank you for your contribution. It's very helpful. Can I take it that we've all read this item? Ashok, Christina, yeah. Thank you. I mean, what I note at para 3.6 at page 20 is that this is trying to improve on the previous version, if I can put it that way, to make the communication earlier, i.e. communication of the training program and dates earlier, and together with the training sessions to be more interactive and less intense on commitment. And the appendix letter sets that out. You don't, I assume previously you were required to attend probably a full day's worth of induction, whereas this time it's a half a day, is that right?
So that's correct. There'll be a morning and an afternoon session, as I understand. So when we try and when we're trying to say that training sessions to be more interactive and less intense, there's other ways of doing training rather than a person standing up and, as I call it, death by PowerPoint. So we have been talking about alternative training sessions. Recently, I did a quiz on elections in pre-election period for officers. So there's more interactive sessions where we put people in groups. We can do little workshops. We can do quizzes. We can do more participatory, and that way you get the more two-way conversational. And there's various techniques and training sessions out there that we are hoping to introduce, so it's not repetitive and it's not death by PowerPoint, and for example, the code of conduct, you'll come along and hopefully I can give you a game or something more interactive to do than rather just stand there and, talk. So we will work that programme. Officers are working that programme up now as we speak.
Well, I also find that in addition to the PowerPoint, they can also be a death by simple, monotonous conversation.
A talk time.
Rather than
for several hours.
Interaction, exactly, rather than questions and so on. All right, that's helpful. So then I think it's divided into the following. We see at 4.2. The training program includes the following components: welcome and onboarding, general member training, community-specific training, additional member support, approach to member induction, and then finally member offloading. I've got a number of questions on all of them, but I can see Julie's hand up. Yeah.
So I've got one question really. So yes, it's very thorough. It's really around the mayor's induction. Mm-hmm. So I can see that separate, and I can see that it says in there that there is, it doesn't use the word option, I don't think, I remember it said, may participate in essential training or something like that, I think it says. And I just wondered, how does the mayor, whoever that may be, so for instance, we look at the essential training, the first item on there is the one which I think is the most important, the code of conduct, which we've just been discussing. So how do we assure ourselves that the mayor has received training around the code of conduct?
May I, Chair?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so one of the things, the practices that I've introduced with Standards Committee and training is a register. We've got to be very open and transparent as members, to our residents and the people we're here to serve. So what we would do is, we've been speaking against member support that each training session will have a register, and then what we would do is we will bring the practice I've adopted in my previous authority is every single member and put a tick or a cross on what training they have attended. And that will come here, and that will be very open and transparent so the world at large can see it. There's no reason why that can't be disclosed. So if you didn't attend, it will have a blank against your name, whereas if you attended, it will have a tick. So that will then give you that open transparency as to who is attending or not. With the code of conduct, regardless of whether you're a returning individual or an existing, you will, if you don't attend, there will be a letter from myself supported by the Standard Advisory Committee. That's not set out in here because I'm hoping we don't get to that position where the monitoring officer says, you should be attending. If you don't attend, this will be shared at the Standards Advisory Committee. This is a public meeting.
But does that apply to everyone?
Yeah, so the code of conduct is down as an essential training. And that's what we're saying, you must attend. And
because it doesn't say that there, does it?
No, that's right. Yes, you are quite right. Essential training.
Yeah.
If you look at page 22.
So we've had this discussion as officers about mandatory training, what I call mandatory training and non-mandatory. But I think on the consultation with officers, we've gone down the route as essential. This is why it's here. If you feel it should say mandatory,
But the bit I'm sort of fussed about, and I could have this wrong, so please just tell me if I've got it wrong, it's 4.15, and it says the general member training will be available to the mayor.
Sorry, 4 point,
On page 29 of the pack, page
Yeah.
11 of the report.
yes.
The general member training will be available to the mayor as well as the resource identified and additional member support. Now, have I missed the previous paragraph that says that the mayor attends essential training?
So my understanding, Bethany, the term councillor does incorporate the mayor here. Have we been explicit?
Yeah, can I add?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I think we, as members, it was members of council, which includes the mayor. And I think we've just added that to make it clear that all the training is offered to the mayor as well.
I think it does actually, because if we look at page 22, 4.6, general member training, which forms, which essential training 1 and 2 forms part of that general member training. And you will see that the beginning of the sentence says, proposed general mayor member training includes the following sessions. But I do think, I think you are right. I do think that we need nevertheless to spell it out.
Yeah.
In the section we looked at earlier, approach to mayor induction at 4.13, we do need to spell it out. That also includes the code of conduct.
And that's helpful, I think. Thank you.
Because what we don't want to do is what I've just done now, which is to go to page 4.6 and sort of rummage through and find it.
Yeah.
You might as well
I
just.
expect if I missed it, someone else will miss it, won't they?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got some concerns about timing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about timing this April anyway, because I understand that Ramadan is anticipated from the first weekend in April for a calendar month, which implies that Eid al-Fitr is going to be on the 1st or around then.
That's correct.
Easter is right in the middle of April this year, with Easter on the 17th, Good Friday on the 15th. Then you're going to mail out this invitation in mid-April at the same time as the postal votes for a meeting on the Monday after election day, when the successful candidate and some others and senior staff are all going to be up till early in the morning with the count on the next day. There's a lot of potential things to go wrong.
So, may I, Chair?
Yes.
That's a good question. So the letter is information sharing to candidates, because we don't know who is going to be a member and or the mayor at that point. So it's just so people can get prepared and start putting their dates in their diary. So the consideration was straight after the elections, after May the 5th. We do want to move quickly on training members up, especially, for example, part of the entitlement of coming in and doing the sessions is you pick up your IT or you refresh or renew your IT. So that was the rationale around that. But you will find, again, it's common practice that at the candidate stage, a letter will go from the MO and RO to potential candidates. So you can start preparing, as you rightly said, you know, I may be away, I may be not, but one hopes that on the 5th of May, majority of our members and they are here, rearing to go. So we're just trying to do a bit more prep in advance. Is that answer? Yeah.
Yes.
My point is that you haven't, while you've got 4.7 bullet point 5, domestic abuse awareness, you haven't got specifically anywhere sexism. And, you know, 2 women were murdered this week, 2 women will be murdered next week, 2 women will be murdered the week after. And it starts with sexism. Simple gender diversity, which descends into patriarchy and all that, patronising and all that sort of thing. And therefore, I would like to see in, what's this one, page 24, so that's, oh God, 4.6, essential training 2 on page 24, equalities, diversity and inclusion, sexism specifically, please.
Yes. We agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, so the reason I'm thinking this, I think there's probably a language thing there, but I'm not quite sure what it is. So yes, but I know what you're getting at.
So the equalities aspects will pick up gender inequalities, or you could also pick up some of the isms that we can highlight. We can speak to the organisers who undertake that to include sexism or discrimination towards women.
Yes.
And behaviours, etc.
Gender equality.
Yeah. Yes, that sort of thing. But I would like it to be spelt out, please, because if any other group were being murdered routinely,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, quite right.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. All right.
It's a shame the misogyny bill didn't go through, isn't it? But, yeah. No, it's all right. I'm just saying, I've got the shame the misogyny bill didn't go through. But,
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, so essential 1 training for everybody, that is to say members and mayor. The time frame is to be delivered, and that's a priority training. I think they're both priority training, aren't they? Essential 1 and 2.
Can I respond to that?
Sorry,
I can
yes.
respond to that. Yeah, I think we've broken it down at this point to really highlight that this is going to be in that first week, or in the first few weeks before the annual council meeting, and then the others, which are still going to be essential, will follow after.
Yes.
Which is why it's broken down in that way.
Sorry, bear with me. I think we've lost Ashok.
He is still there, Chair.
He's there.
He's frozen.
That's it. Yes, so the essential 1 training to be delivered within, I think, a 2-week window between the 9th of May and the 26th of May. And then the essential 2 then starts from the 2nd week, 26th of May, over the following months. When you say over the following months, has that been tied to any dates, or is that still sort of to be looked at?
Yeah, we're currently in the process of scheduling that, so it has more specific dates kind of provisionally against each session, but it's not the current state where it can be shared yet, but we're tying those dates down
right
at the moment.
So if it assists, Chair, what we can do is, as Bethany said, so she's currently speaking to officers saying, when can you do this? We can share a draft version maybe on the 17th of April when we come back. We can pick up your comments and suggestions, add them to this paper, and attach the timetable, at least have some indicative times and dates of when the essential training 2 will take place, and bring that back here.
I think that would be wise, and forgive me for putting you under the parapet, because when I see the language essential training, essential 1 and 2, well, if it's so essential, then we need a timetable, don't we? So I know you're all under pressure, I appreciate that, but I think it would be helpful to have that in due course. What are your thoughts here, Tash?
Yes, I agree with that. I wanted to go on to something else.
Yes.
Is that all right?
Yes.
As far as the training is concerned, the councillors had a whole scheme of training before Christmas. And I think some of us would have, some recommendations to make. Were we going to use outside agencies? I don't want this to be minuted, for example, but I would not recommend host not. Anything.
We're recording.
I'd say that if they were here. And I think most of the councillors would agree with that. But there were other groups that delivered excellent training we were very happy about. So that's my first point. My second point is I can't find, although it may be that I'm not looking hard enough, anywhere where Asmat's point about attendance being recorded is in here. Is it?
Well, when you say recorded.
Well, as Matt was saying, there's going to be a chart.
Yes.
If there's going to be a cross against your name.
That's literally that's a real concern, is it?
Exactly. And I think it would be only fair for that to be made absolutely clear to people. You know, it's not negotiable.
Thank you, councillor. So on the training and feedback, what we can do on each session, it should be done, and if it hasn't been done here, hopefully we can introduce some sort of questionnaire so we can obtain that feedback that you, and it's rightly so. At the end of the day, we are training yourselves as members. It's important that we get that feedback. We don't use this trainer again, or we do like this trainer or not, etc., etc. So what we can incorporate in this report is maybe a paragraph that there will be a evaluation and feedback for members attending all training. Okay. The second thing, and I welcome that what we've been discussing, and what we could have is under the recommendations to note that a record of attendance of all training sessions, especially Essential Part 1 and Part 2, will be brought back to Standards Advisory Committee. And that will be the open and transparency.
Will be kept and brought back.
I think that makes sense, doesn't it? It's a good, but again, part of good governance to be able to keep that. But also, I think in due course, it may even become public record. People are entitled, I'm sure, the electorate are entitled to see what their councillors have or have not received by way of training.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Particularly if some have consistently not attended.
Yeah, indeed.
Thank you.
Can I, thank you, Anne, can I just check, the foundational skills training, page 24. And the committee specific training, page 26. Actually, let's just turn to foundational skills training. Those are envisaged to be organised after Essential 1 and 2, is that right there? Yeah. And presumably that will then be done in the months ahead, is it? In the months after Essential 1 and 2 have been delivered.
Yes.
Well, that's the theory anyway.
Yeah, if I understand the schedule is looking like it will be from May onwards, the Essential Foundation onwards. It will be across around 9 months provisionally at the moment, so it really will be spread out.
Yes.
But again, because the details of the dates aren't finalised, but it's looking like that's roughly what it will be.
I see. Which then I suppose makes sense for, just picking up your point, Anne, earlier, that you don't just simply have a watchload of training in one period, because in some of the professions then your date is your deadline is up, so you need to be able to get all of that done. This is a seamless process on a continuing basis, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. And then over the page 26, committee-specific training. The second sentence at 4.8, other committees will deliver individual training or refresher training for all committee members. Other committees, do you mean other committees within the council?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And then in the first bullet point, just the last sentence, this is required training and will be delivered before sitting of the committee, which again makes sense, of course, because you need to be able to do that before.
So as sorry, Chair. So as said earlier, quasi-judicial committees such as planning and licensing, you need to be trained in understanding the law, and so what will happen is before the committee, once we know the names of the members that will be on those committees, we would then ensure that they've undertaken training. Because it is those if the decision making is not in accordance with
due process,
law, etc.
Yeah. Page 27, just below the bullet point, the sentence begins, this training will be delivered following the annual council meeting May 2022. I'm just trying to understand what the word this refers to. Is it all of the the bullet points, or is it the last bullet point at the beginning of page 27?
Yes.
I think we should say the training.
Yes. So
Oh, sorry, I don't want to
I
make
think
it,
it's
but
referring to all the
Thank you,
committee training because that will be decided after the council meetings and the committees.
I like
So they'll all be after the.
Thank you, that clears that up. And then I think there is also at page 30, 4.16, bespoke briefings and training will be provided, etc., etc. Whenever I see a sentence or a paragraph with the word bespoke, it always reminds me of a tailor. I don't know, bespoke, I mean, is that referring to high quality briefings?
So, no, bespoke as in individuals. So for example, I may be a member and I may not have the greatest command of English.
Yeah.
So I would want to bestow training for myself. It may not be applicable to all members. Or I may have attended a chairing training session, but feel that I need additional. So I would speak to member support. So we may have some bespoke that's tailored for the individual councillor in there to ensure they can undertake their roles and responsibility as a member. So that is what we mean by bespoke. And in an ideal world, at some point, as the months go by, you know, again, depending on the appetite here at them, members may all have a what we call like a performance assessment. You know, you have a praise where you say, look, this is my training that I need to develop to understand how to do it. So that's where we're trying to get with the word bestow. I agree with that, Bethany. I think that's what we're trying to.
I don't know, and I don't have a huge sort of view on this, but I don't know whether we should perhaps use the words tailor-made briefings instead of bespoke. But anyway, as I said, I'm not going to make it me that way, but yeah. Well,
good to use plain English then. Good to use plain English, I agree.
And then finally, money. Where's the money need to come from? Which I think you were alluding to earlier. And we see that at section 5, at the bottom of page 30. And so this is coming out of the induction program budget. Sorry, the member support, existing member support budget of between 12 and 14,000. So are we going to be using a mixture of in-house and external base?
So the objective is really to use in-house because we have sufficient in-house expertise within the council, but also there's organisations out there such as the LGA and they have free training that we can access. And I know there's like council's newsletters. So we will do our best endeavours to look for cost-effective, you know, high-quality training and before we start having to bring in externals. But if we do bring an external trainer in, that's where the register becomes very important, because the last thing you want to do is pay an external trainer to come in and only 5 people attend. And that you know, which is what I've experienced in the past. But if you bring an external in, there is more of a drive and a push from parties to make people attend, because there's a cost associated to that. And again, part of this record of training, you'll be able to see which external trainer we had and who attended and not, and that's that open and transparency aspect. But the object really is to use internal expertise
and free or subsidised.
Correct.
Yeah. I wonder then we can spell that out in these paragraphs, because of course we are dealing with public funds, and we want to be able to make it clear that we're not using it as a first resort, but as a last resort. And that wherever possible, the council will strive in the first instance to be able to grab the freebies, so to speak. And then if we then need to, we can then tap into the budget if we need to. Is that agreeable to everyone? What are people's views?
I think that's right. I think it makes sense.
Christina?
Yeah.
Any other comments on the training program or any other question from anybody? No? All right, we then come to the next item, which is item 6, ethical framework update, pages 35 to 38. And this is the item that we are asked to note the declaration of interest, if declared since October 19th of 2021, and note the code of conduct complaints received from the same date to date. But before we go to that, is there anything you want to say?
I think the report is quite self-explanatory, Chair.
All right, so we've looked at it, and I think the only thing to note there is that there's a single gift declared since 9th of October. And again, in keeping with discussions and policy update we had in this committee, there seems to be that, i.e. specifying the amount in question, which we see at page 41. That being the case, if there's no comment, yes.
Sorry, I might have got confused here. We don't have an appendix 3 here, or is that in? Is that right?
It's under the exempt.
It's under the exempt.
That's the exempt.
Fine, thank you.
We're going to, exempt.
Yeah.
Questions, any comment from anybody? If not, then do we agree to note the declaration of interest, the gift declared and the code of conduct complaints? Do we agree? Noted? Noted? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are we on to the,
Pardon?
you need to say that we're going to exclude.
Yes, so we now come to the exempt item, and for those of us who have joined us on the live stream, we will now resolve to go into the exempt session, and we are going to have to turn off the live stream for that item. So if you have joined us, thank you very much indeed for your participation. And we
We'll
have
need to agree to exclude the press.
Can we resolve to go
Yeah.
into the exempt session?
Yes, agreed.
Agreed?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.